Hello, welcome in. And you clicked on the link because I said that black people are the litmus test right now in America. And I want to tell you what I mean. Right now in America, we are seeing not something that's new. And Lord knows black people can tell you it's not new, right? But black people are experiencing an increase in lynching and being disenfranchised. And it is a litmus test, meaning what's being rolled out for black people right now is going to be rolled out for America overall. Let me tell you what I mean. This is Dr. Darnise. Welcome in. This is my House of Humanities, and one of the things we do is talk about the things that affect black communities. What I'm trying to say here is think about Gary, Indiana right now, the state of Indiana, but Gary, Indiana in particular. Y'all know we know Gary, Indiana as the birthplace of the Jacksons. But right now, you probably even know, we've been following the news, that they have been without power for, 2 weeks? They have been without power as a result of storms, and there's no one coming to save them. So as black people, as black communities, what we have to really realize is there's nobody coming to save us. And oftentimes our communities are disenfranchised on purpose. We know this. And so we have in the past been able to circle our wagons and look out for self. But what's happening in our country now is there's so much division that can't even happen. So Gary, Indiana is almost like Katrina, right? Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans years back. Those people are just left on their own. This is the United States of America. This is a wealthy nation. And yet they can't get any help. They can't get any support. Black people, we got to pay attention to what's going on now. And I know I'm a little hoarse because, I've been in a classroom teaching. I'm a little hoarse. But I was just sitting here thinking about things and looking at the news. And I was like, are black people even paying attention right now? That is always my thing. We cannot afford to keep starting over at zero every generation. We cannot afford every generation to keep starting over at zero. It is as if we have a memory wipe every generation, and we don't understand what has come before us, and we don't understand what our leaders have already fought for us, and so we're willing to just let go of the advancements we've already made. Black people out here talking about you're not going to vote. Why would you give away your right to vote? And I know it can be people in the comments saying, well, it doesn't really matter. You know what? No group of people ever gives back rights already won. Nobody gives away rights already won. No community of people can do better in a society when you give back rights that have already been won. No community does well when the children and the grandchildren know less. Y'all know I'm in the classroom, 3 times a week. I'm in the classroom, I'm at an HBCU, and when I tell you there is a lack of the continuation of knowledge, they don't know who Lorraine Hansberry was. They don't know what the Raisin in the Sun was. They don't know who Richard Wright was. They don't know Native Son. And I'm not just blaming them, right? What I'm saying is it is really up to us as a people to educate ourselves, to look out for our own communities. Okay, so let me get back to what I was talking about here because I can get off track because I get worked up. Okay, so power issues in Gary, Indiana, and I want you to start thinking about it like this. The billionaire class, they have already decided that the data centers require so much power that they got to figure out where that power is going to come from. Here's how I want you to do critical thinking. Here's how I want you to use the humanities and understand something about how things work together. These data centers, we understand, require an enormous amount of power and water. What's missing in Gary, Indiana? Black communities that don't have water and electricity. Because private billionaires like Zuckerberg, like Jeff Bezos, like tech giants, they are figuring out where they can siphon power and build their own communities, build their own communities that will exist in a bubble where they have direct access to power that they need to keep running, and not be subject to any sort of, fluke in that city or that municipality's power grid. They don't want to be dependent upon anybody's power grid. So already what is happening behind the scenes under the radar is billionaires, tech companies are figuring out, how are we going to have our own source of power? And one of the things is, now you're seeing, let's test it out in certain communities and see what it's like when a city doesn't have power or clean water. Of course, it's going to be us. Black communities are always, the testing ground, because the larger population in America doesn't care. They don't care when it's black people. Oh, that's too bad. Look how many people suffered during Katrina in New Orleans. And for how long? Look how many people are suffering in Gary, Indiana, and probably, I would venture to say, that more than half of Americans don't even know it. And if they've heard of it, they're not thinking about it. They're not thinking that it means anything. But here's what I want you to start thinking about as a member of my House of Humanities here. Here's why the humanities matter. Here's why I get so passionate and worked out. When you study the humanities, you understand history. You understand geography. You understand how systems work. You understand how geopolitics work too, because you understand, again, history, geography, languages, religion. Who are the people who are attacked for their religion all the time? The Muslims. So we're told in America, you better beware the Muslims. They're taking over. In Michigan, they're taking over. Are the Muslims taking over for real? Or are the billionaires taking over for real? But once the American empire has decided that they're on a mission for something, now they got to figure out how they're going to justify making all of these changes to the everyday American. They got to figure out, okay, well, we've got to hype up our surveillance. So now we have these surveillance cameras. Well, now we've got drones everywhere. Okay, at some point, these drones are going to become weaponized, and they're just going to shoot at people who are suspected. And they're going to say, well, that was a dangerous person, and so the drone had to take them out. The drone had to take them out. Like a stormtrooper in Star Wars or something. I want you to think ahead. I want you to think 2-3 steps ahead. I want you to think about how the United States has treated other countries that it has treated as territory, how Western civilization has colonized other people all over this planet, and how they have treated those local and those indigenous people. That's what's happening in America now, because they've gone around the planet and they've done this to everybody around the planet. Now the chickens have come home to roost. Who is left to extract from? Americans ourselves. Oh, they're like, oh, okay, well, we got to figure out a way where we can extract from Americans, and they're going to even go along with it, because they're going to see, we're going to tell them that this is for their own good, for their own safety, because it's always a matter of safety presented to us, right? This is why you need ICE. This is why you need extra policing. It's been done before, and it's happening right in front of our faces, and so as Black people, we got to recognize, listen, we got to come together as a community and quit fighting about, who is a foundational Black American, or who is this, or who is that, or who is gay, or who is trans. We don't have time or luxury to be thinking about that. There is something that is happening in America right now that, as Americans, we're not even accustomed to thinking can happen to us. We are accustomed, we know what's going on in Cuba. Those people haven't had power in a long time in Cuba. We used to seeing this happen in different parts of the world, in Haiti and Cuba and the Middle East and, wherever else. We're used to that. Even though we can shrug our shoulders and say, well, it's horrible, but we don't think that's going to happen in America, but it's already happening in America. Those people in Gary, Indiana, they can't get power. How is it that they can't have power? So I need you to start thinking ahead. I need you to start thinking about also the lynchings that have been going on in Mississippi, no less. How is it that there are lynchings? Black people are being lynched kind of frequently now, and we're relatively quiet about this. Now, I want you to think historically a little bit with me to some of our leaders who were anti-lynching activists. Paul Robeson, Ida B. Wells Barnett was a journalist who wrote about lynching. And this was in the early 20th century. And she was threatened. Her office was blown up. She was accosted. She was followed. She was harassed. She was a little woman, 4'11". Little dark-skinned woman, Ida B. Wells, 4'11". And she carried a pistol on her. And she's like, well, if you come for me, then I guess we gonna fight. Because she was writing articles about how black people were being lynched, and not just men. She was also talking about how black women were being lynched. Black children were being lynched. So, of course, the establishment was like, well, we can't have her telling those stories because we want lynching to be able to lynch black men and tell the story that they're a threat to white womanhood, that they are criminals, and that's just the way we handle it in the South. Ida B. Wells Barnett said, no, that's not the story, because I see that not only are these men not convicted of any crime, but I see you're also out here lynching women and young people. And for that, she was harassed, and she didn't back down, however. And that's why I'm saying I want us to remember our heroes, our leaders, because we're not starting over at zero. You see what I mean? We as a people cannot afford to keep starting over at zero as if, oh my God, I never knew about this person. I never knew about this person. Or I read about them 30 years ago in high school and I haven't thought about them since. This is what I mean as a people. We have collective historical amnesia. We have a culture now where I guess it's cool to disparage our elders and our historical figures. Every Martin Luther King holiday, you'll see some people using King's likeness, putting his picture on a flyer for a club or something, giving him a do-rag or whatever. You see people want to come and cast aspersions on Dr. King's legacy. You see videos about, this historical figure or that historical figure. You have all these YouTube channels that are dedicated to tearing down our people. We have a problem in the black community, and it is that we cannot unify. And we continue to think that somebody else is going to fix it. The school system is going to do right by us. The justice system is going to do right by us, even though every day we live and breathe, they have not, and they're not going to. And yet, right now we're looking at a lynching problem, same as we had 100 years from now, like literally 100 years from now. It's 2026. In the 1920s, we had a lynching problem. But a lynching problem since emancipation, really. And you had Ida B. Wells talking about it. You had Paul Robeson talking about it. Paul Robeson was the most famous black man of his time, starting in, 1930s on through the time he died in the late 1970s. He was a singer, an actor, a Renaissance man. He was an athlete for Rutgers University. He was a Renaissance man. He sang in over 20 languages. Paul Robeson. And many of us don't know Paul Robeson because there was a great smear campaign by the U.S. government against Paul Robeson to make him seem like he was a communist and that black people should throw him away, basically. So you had people like the person, Roy Wilkins, who was the head of the NAACP back in the day, to talk against Paul Robeson. This is what I mean by in the black community, we have a problem in sticking together and forming community. Circle the wagons, y'all. We got to circle the wagons. and say, we don't let nobody else come in here and pick our leaders for us. We don't let nobody else come in here and tear down somebody because they had some kind of, I don't know, misstep, whatever you want to call it. So what? We got bigger fish to fry. I don't care who's sleeping with who. I don't care. Do you care? So, black people hanging from trees. You worried about who's sleeping and who's in whose bed? Come on. That brings me to Nolan Wells, 2026. Paul Robeson was speaking against lynching 100 years ago. Ida B. Wells was talking about lynching 100 years ago. For that, Paul Robeson was practically erased as an entertainer. You're going to just have to Google him, or I'm going to do a whole other video on the great Paul Robeson. But he basically sacrificed his whole career and almost his life because these people came for him and almost killed him. Look it up. Paul Robeson. Nevertheless, here we are a century later, and what happened to Nolan Wells? We don't know. But the establishment says, oh, all of these disappearances and lynchings are suicide. Come on now. This is, again, black people are the litmus test for what's going wrong in America, because the state is about to start disappearing people. Disappearing people and, cutting off certain cities from the power grid, or telling people that we can't help, the government can't help. FEMA is already, what do you call that, a lame duck. FEMA doesn't have any money, doesn't have any funding. So what am I saying? I'm saying that black people, we have to do better as a community. We cannot afford to be looking for anybody else to come and save us. And when I say that, I know some people will say, well, I never looked for anybody else to come and save us. But we did. Most of us have become complacent. But we did. Because normally I'm on here talking about education, right? I'm talking about humanities. I'm talking about, whichever historical figure. And somebody will put in the comments or write me on one of the other platforms about, well, it's the job of the schools to teach my kids. So if they can't read, that's a problem with the school. Or, well, what do you want me to do? I have to work 2 jobs. What? You're talking about people who descended from people who were in slavery, where reading could get your hand cut off. Reading could get you punished harshly, and yet people still read. You're talking about people where we've always had multiple jobs or no job and struggling to put a roof over our heads, and still the kids could read, and still we valued education. So this is what I mean. We say we understand that nobody is coming, but then we'll say something like, well, the schools are supposed to... What? The Department of Education almost doesn't exist anymore. Black history is being taken out of the schools left and right. And we can still say that, okay, black people, you have to wake up and realize not only are these things happening piecemeal, right? Isolated cases, they're not isolated cases. And so what that means for us is that we have to, as a community, come together. And so when we see black leadership rising up, we do not need to be crabs in a barrel and trying to tear them down and saying they're not this or they're not that, or I never did. What? We got 2 young men in Tennessee right now, and probably most people don't know who they are. Justin Pearson and Justin Jones in Tennessee, in the State House. They are Tennessee state representatives. Justin Jones and Justin Pearson in the Tennessee State House. Watch them. They are young men to watch. They are young leaders to watch. Jasmine Crockett, people come for her like, suddenly we don't support Jasmine Crockett? We can't support Kamala Harris? I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We're not free enough to be pulling down our own leaders. What other communities do you see doing that? Just for giggles. What do you see other ethnic groups who they have some people rise up in the ranks, and then their own people tear them down? Do you see Jews doing that in America? Do you see Asians doing that? You don't tear down your own people. You don't tear down your own people. Okay, the people, are we expecting them to be perfect? Is that what the deal is? Oh, but she this, oh, but she that. Are we expecting people to be perfect? Okay. We have to circle the wagons. And so the black people who are in leadership, who are doing things that show that they have our best interests at heart, then we need to follow them. We need to be about putting things together at a grassroots level. That means at a community level. So that when something is happening in our communities, in our cities, we are able to mobilize quickly and go attend to that, and also go and show up at the State House, also go and show up at the ballot box. No group of people ever comes up by disparaging their own in public, by forgetting their history, or starting over at zero every generation. So it is a state of emergency, really, for Black Americans. It's a state of emergency, where are we going to be in this new world order, because we're not going back. I mean, whoever comes into office after this fascist regime, it is not like we're going back to some golden age. There's no going back. There's only going forward. And so what will the new America look like? Who is going to rise to the top? Who's going to rise in leadership? And I'll tell you one of the ways that there's going to be a class divide, because I've said it before. Literacy is going to be a mechanism of the class divide. If you cannot read well, you are going to be at the bottom. You are going to be stuck in low-level service jobs, if that, because robots will be able to do it. You won't need a person at the drive-thru at the restaurant anymore, at the fast food place anymore, because it'll all be automated. We already have self-checkout. So where are you going to be? Where are you going to fall out? Crime may go up. Oh, there's a place for folk in the prison. And then your labor is free. Now slavery is cool because you're a felon. So a class divide is already happening. What can we do about it? We've got to circle the wagons and be about our own self-business. One thing that every household needs to be doing is educating yourselves and educating your youth. Have you forgotten who your people were? Have you forgotten who the Black Panthers were? Have you forgotten who Angela Davis was? Did you know who Paul Robeson was? Did you know who Ida B was? Did you know about the fact that America had to have an anti-lynching law? Why would you need an anti-lynching law? That means that lynching is prevalent enough where you have to threaten people with prison to stop lynching Black people. So being educated, being plugged into what's going on, enables us to circle our own wagons, elect proper leadership, and be ready to be mobilized and handle our business when we need to handle our business. When stuff happens, we cannot just be, scrambling. Like, what happens now? Everybody call, who's the lawyer everybody calls? Ben Crump. Anything happens in Black America, there's one law firm, Ben Crump, like Johnny Cochran before he died. One law firm. It used to be Al Sharpton. Now it's Ben Crump. Call Ben Crump to his office, and sue somebody. That can't be our way. So anyway, I wanted to come on here because I wanted y'all to start thinking about connecting the dots between what we see happening in Gary, Indiana, the desire for data centers to have access to electricity and water, like free access to electricity and water, and then look around the country at places that don't have access to water and electricity. And of course they start in a Black community because nobody cares. Nobody cares until it comes to their backyard. And then Karen will rage a fit, right? Karen will say, I want to speak to the manager, and she'll get somebody to listen to her. I'm going to wrap it up here because really, I could go on for another hour. I'm not going to do that. We're at over 26 minutes now. Some people are not going to be able to listen for 26 minutes. And that says something about where we are, where 26 minutes is just too long to listen to the state of Black America. If you're still here, I appreciate you. Put some comments down there. As always, I've got some things down there, some links you can click on, get your reading list. Some things I'm giving away for free. Some things cost $1 or $2. You can join the membership, support the channel. You know, I appreciate it. I appreciate those of you who watch regularly. I appreciate those of you who've been on with the shorts. I've been doing more shorts, right? I appreciate y'all. I get really passionate because we can't afford to start over every generation, y'all. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it here as a people if we do. So let that not be the final word. So I'm going to wrap this up here. Bye for now.